It's got teeth like a shark.
They are like razor blades.
A taste for blood.
The giant snakehead will attack.
And even walks on land.
All of a sudden, this thing springs legs, you know, and Nikes.
To some, it's the ultimate prize. To others, it's a deadly threat.
If an angler turns it into us, it gets whacked.
And it may be coming soon to a river near you. It's Fishzilla. Invasive species. In their native habitats, they live in balance with nature's food chain. But in foreign territory, they can become dangerous intruders. Many start from a single colony and multiply to a deadly swarm. Some feed and breed so successfully, they annihilate whole ecosystems. Now, there's a new invader on the block, a ferocious fish with a massive appetite and razor-sharp teeth. It may even walk on land, the snakehead. May 2002, Crofton, Maryland. A quiet American town is about to encounter terror straight out of science fiction. Amateur angler Paul DiMauro fishes a small pond behind a strip mall. He hooks a strange-looking fish. Unable to identify it, he snaps a few photos. He releases it back into the pond, but DiMauro's curious about the alien-looking creature. He drops off the photos at the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. He has no idea he's about to set off a firestorm.
Paul DiMauro caught one in May, took a couple of pictures and let it go. At the time, he didn't know he had hooked a fish that can breathe air and use its fins-like feet to cross land.
You ever seen the torpedo in like the movies? Exactly like it. I thought it was a beaver coming. I mean, it has so much of a wake. Real nasty fish.
When the picture came into DNR, it was recognized as being something unusual and different that we ought to look into.
Maryland biologists fear the worst. They email the photos to Florida ichthyologist and invasive species specialist Walt Courtney. For Courtney, one look is all it takes.
As soon as I saw the photograph, I recognized what the species was, China argus, the so-called northern snakehead.
The northern snakehead, or China argus, is native to Asia. There, it lives in harmony, kept in check as both predator and prey. But snakeheads are also known to lash out at any who approach them. Of the 29 known snakehead varieties, many, like the giant snakehead, are powerful hunters with ravenous appetites and sharp, snapping jaws. Jaws that can tear flesh, even human flesh. Thailand's Srinikaran Reservoir is a known snakehead stomping ground. Local fisherman Lung Tiang describes a violent snakehead attack. One day, after fishing near his riverbank home, he was preparing to turn in. At the water's edge, Lung gathered up the day's catch. Out of nowhere, a sharp pain ripped through his hand.
At first, I wasn't quite sure what bit me. I saw a lot of blood on my arm.
Inside their home, Lung's wife was cooking dinner. She heard a piercing wail. Frightened, she followed the screams to her husband's side.
I ran to see him and he was bleeding so much. He asked me if it was a snake, but I said no, it's a fish. When I looked again, I just saw something very big and black.
After closer inspection, Lung identified his attacker. A snakehead. Dark and massive, it slithered in the water beneath him and returned to its lair underneath Lung's house. The couple was shaken. They had no idea how long this fierce creature had been nesting directly under their feet. The bite was bad, but Lung knows the damage could have been far worse.
I thought I was lucky it didn't hurt me that much. They can bite your entire hand off.
In the U.S., snakehead attacks are just a small part of their danger. To an ecosystem, invading snakeheads pose a far greater threat. Outside its natural habitat, the northern variety can decimate a food chain. Unlike the tropical giant snakehead, the northern can thrive in freezing waters, feeding and multiplying year-round, starving out native species. Add an ability to breathe air and possibly even walk across land, and the snakehead's a formidable foe.
I sent an email back and I said, you better get out there and have your people check that pond to see if there's more there.
For U.S. biologists, a northern snakehead invasion's a nightmare scenario. For Baltimore Sun reporter Candy Thompson, it's breaking news.
You know, it was a reporter's dream as a story. And this had science, and it also had science fiction.
Thompson's front page headline, "It lurks in Crofton's waters, spreads faster than the frightening fishzilla itself." The creature, nicknamed Frankenfish, tightens its grip on the public.
By the end of that second week, it was crazy. It was more insane than almost anything I've run into.
Camera crews and reporters gather at Crofton Pond, epicenter of the growing media circus.
The pond is drawing fishermen and national attention.
And everyone's hoping to catch a glimpse of this real-life Loch Ness monster.
It's like this creature out of science fiction. You know, it eats everything in its path. When it's done with that, it walks out of the water, eats your picnic lunch, eats your pets, and just keeps moving.
But scientists know the snakehead crisis is all too real. Are there more out there? Maryland's Department of Natural Resources puts out an all-points bulletin. Snakeheads wanted, dead or alive. Anyone who catches one must report it immediately, and under no circumstances put it back in the water. Local fisherman Joe Gillespie is one of thousands who reads about the frightening fishzilla. He becomes determined to snag one for himself.
Come on, let's go.
June 2002. 2 months after the first Frankenfish sighting, Joe Gillespie heads out on a snakehead hunting expedition. He brings along his son Mark and Mark's friend Jake. They hit the same Crofton Pond. They paddle out on sailboards, getting as close to this peculiar predator as they dare. Suddenly, Gillespie spots a swirling mass of minnows. Then, something strange pops out of the weeds.
I thought it was just a turtle head sticking out of the grass. And when I looked closer, it wasn't a turtle.
Gillespie casts his bait and hook. The fish bites aggressively, but breaks free. Gillespie tries several more times, getting nibbles, but no bites. About to give up, he gets the strike he's been waiting for. He's surprised by its strength. Pulling it in, the angler's astonished. It's a monster. Baring its shark-like teeth, the scaly fish is still fighting, trying to gnaw its way through the net. Staring at the slimy creature, Gillespie ends the struggle, the only way he can.
I put the point of the knife in the top of his skull so he'd stop fighting and biting.
Back on land, the whopper catch measures over ½ a meter long. At the dock, the fish is a sensation.
We took a picture with the Sunday paper, and then I think my brother showed up, and then my nephews, and people started showing up at the pond here. So before I actually got out of here, I think there was probably about 25 people all talking.
But to Dr. Courtney, Joe Gillespie's whopper catch is extremely bad news. His enormous specimen measures 8 inches longer than Paul DeMaro's, suggesting Maryland offers optimal conditions for snakeheads to grow big and thrive. And if they can thrive, they can multiply. Even worse, they could already be spawning.
The northeastern part of the United States would be very good habitat for northern snakehead.
The proof comes all too fast. The following week, fishing the same Crofton Pond, angler Joe Gillespie catches 7 baby snakeheads. Scientists now know they're facing a full-on invasion.
We've got adults, we've got juveniles. We're going to have to get the fish out of there.
Now, the infamous Frankenfish is public enemy #1.
We were probably hitting about 100 calls a day. People in the area are actually worried that it can get into their house, that their children who may be around the pond are in danger. It was pretty crazy.
According to Maryland's Department of Natural Resources, the snakeheads are being fruitful and multiplying.
It gets kind of nutty when you get to the point where you've got Jon Stewart talking about it, and you've got David Letterman making jokes about it, and you've got the Weekly World News weighing in on what it is. I mean, then you can't tell fact from fiction at all.
The fearsome fish even inspires its own horror movie.
Something's out there. Something unnatural. A fish. Pot snake. Pure evil. A fish that don't need water. With a bite like a gator and a meanness to match.
Some snakehead thrill seekers jump at any chance to see one, touch one, or even eat one. Annapolis, Maryland chef Jerry Trice capitalizes on the snakehead's ghoulish reputation and the public's insatiable curiosity.
True Annapolis style, they dove in head first. They were very curious. There was fear. I think a lot of gawkers more than actual people that wanted it.
But for some, the ultimate thrill is owning this fishzilla, no matter how petrifying and physically powerful a pet.
I had a customer who had a fairly large snakehead in a 75-gallon tank. Came swimming across the tank full force, hit the side panel, and cracked it. They can get pretty powerful and have a good head of steam, enough to break glass.
Yet beneath the sensation lurks a grave warning. The Secretary of the Department of the Interior holds a press conference, and she makes it clear. This ferocious fish is dangerous.
These fish are top-level predators that will eat virtually anything in their path. They can travel across land and live out of water for up to 3 days.
October 2002. Authorities attempt to put a stop to fishzilla fever. Congress adds snakeheads to the invasive species most wanted list, the list of injurious wildlife. Now transporting these fish, or their eggs, is strictly illegal.
A proposal being introduced this Wednesday in Annapolis would make it illegal to own one in Maryland altogether.
The ban is welcome news to Walt Courtney and other scientists determined to stop snakeheads. But these invasive fish have already arrived. The pressing questions remain. Where are snakeheads coming from? And can they be stopped?
It is a serious issue. We're dealing with introduced fishes over which we have no control whatsoever.
Researchers look to other invasive species for clues about how to deal with such ecosystem threats. In fact, the snakehead's only one of about 50,000 alien species currently in the U.S. The history of invasive species goes back hundreds of years. Fortunately, most invasive species integrate over time. Florida's so-called walking catfish and New York's wall lizard have each found their place in the natural balance, leaving the food chain intact. Others are catastrophes. The feared Africanized killer bee arrived in the U.S. as a commercial hybrid, a unique species bred for better honey production. Others, like the stinging South American fire ant, came by accident, stowing away on a cargo ship. And some, like the poisonous cane toad in Australia, were imported to control pests and soon spread beyond control.
These kinds of things are certainly not good for our native species at all.
Today, scientists fight back with strategies from genetic crossbreeding to habitat destruction, to one of the riskiest methods of all, importing yet another enemy species to combat the invader. But some alien invaders, like the snakehead, show no signs of blending in.
It represents an introduction of something that can compete and possibly outcompete the native fishes.
Now, as Steve Early and other concerned biologists analyze the growing snakehead crisis, they fear the worst. Is there any way to stop this tenacious fish? Maryland's Crofton Pond, ground zero for the snakehead outbreak. Biologists and natural resource authorities examine the evidence. Facing a possible eco-catastrophe, they have only two options: control it or annihilate it. They decide to fight the spreading snakehead scourge before it becomes an epidemic. Authorities choose their deadly weapon: poison. September 2002. 4 months after the first snakehead sighting, authorities administer a powerful pesticide called rotenone to Crofton Pond. The poison will kill every fish in the pond, including native species. But in the war against the snakehead, it's a price scientists are willing to pay. Though the rotenone will remain active for up to 4 weeks, biologists expect native species to be successfully reintroduced, repopulating the habitat once again. The poisoning works. Within days, the rotenone yields a disturbingly high number of dead snakeheads. 1,200, including 6 adults. Local biologists breathe a sigh of relief.
I'm certain I killed every single snakehead in there. I'm certain I killed every single fish in the pond.
For the next 2 years, authorities believe the snakehead war is won. Then, disaster. May 7th, 2004. An avid angler fishes a Potomac River inlet called Little Hunting Creek, looking for bass. Instead, he reels in something else. A fierce, foreign-looking fish. It's another northern snakehead. And now, it's in Virginia.
This Chinese northern snakehead fish was found in the Potomac River yesterday.
Then the situation gets worse. Local fishermen find more.
Since May 7th, 5 snakeheads have been found in the Potomac.
The Department of Natural Resources wasted no time asking for help from area fishermen. They posted flyers at area marinas asking anyone who caught a snakehead to kill it and call DNR.
And the anglers are snagging snakeheads in a tributary off the 600-kilometer, 4-state-long Potomac River. Fishzilla now has access to one of the largest waterways in America.
There's no way you can poison the Potomac River. It's not an isolated pond such as the one in Crofton.
I think the coverage when it spread to Virginia, I think it was much more serious. The fun parts were out of it. We knew they were spreading.
The Virginia catch makes national news, increasing snakehead awareness. Reports now surface of snakehead sightings in other states, including New York and California. Across the country, Fish and Game authorities wonder what's going on. Are these new snakehead sightings offspring or fugitives from Crofton, Maryland's original population? Biologists decide to find out. They compare the DNA of the fish found in Virginia with the fish found originally in Maryland. The comparisons reveal a chilling truth. The new northern snakeheads in Virginia and elsewhere are the same species, but from different family trees. It can only mean one thing: this alien predator's invading on multiple fronts at once.
I don't know whether this is good news or bad news, but what it does show is that these were all separate introductions.
But how can the snakehead invasion be stopped? Investigators need to discover where they're coming from and why they're so pervasive and powerful. Now more than ever, understanding this alien predator becomes an urgent priority.
Now authorities say the fish has been breeding and making its home here. In other words, it may be too late to stop them.
Virginia fisheries biologist John Odenkirk believes knowledge is his most powerful weapon against the snakehead threat. The fish is now breeding in his own backyard. To stop them, Odenkirk wants to know as much as possible about how snakeheads behave, mate, and migrate.
Whenever you don't know, that sort of breeds a fear or an uncertainty. And we've never had to deal with a fish like a northern snakehead. When you handle them, they fight you. They're good fighters and a sort of a bad boy fish.
Odenkirk's first task is to tackle the vicious rumors and separate hysteria from truth. Some say the fish resists captivity so strongly, it'll do anything to escape. Odenkirk tries an experiment to test snakehead determination. He places 8 snakeheads in a tank with a steel mesh cover. To escape, they'll have to fight their way out. He returns the next day. Odenkirk is stunned. The tank is nearly empty. 6 fish are lying behind a door. It's proof of the snakehead's will to survive.
They love to jump and they'll figure a way out. Right here, there was, I guess, in this spot, they just kept jumping until they found that spot, and once one made it out, the rest must have realized, hey, this is the way to go, and they got just one in a row, just kept right behind them.
The biologist also wants to test rumors that this fishzilla breeds supernaturally fast. Could something about the snakehead's anatomy make this possible?
We don't have any idea what the growth rates are, so that's a very important component to understand the biology.
Odenkirk dissects a female snakehead. The biologist cuts off the snakehead's inner ear bones. Growth rings inside these ear bones reveal the fish's age and therefore its spawning potential.
And it's like counting rings on a tree of this fish's age, which I'm guessing just based on its size is probably going to be 4.
By age 4, this female may already have played her part in spreading the species by the thousands. A northern snakehead reaches sexual maturity by age 2 or 3. Each spawning age female like this one can release up to 15,000 eggs at once.
What we'll do with these ovaries is we'll take a subsample, weigh the subsample, and then count how many individual eggs are in the ovary. We'll be able to model that index across the year to watch sort of how the spawning season progresses.
In fact, snakehead spawning statistics are alarming. Snakeheads can mate as often as 5 times a year. This means in just 2 years, a single female can release up to 150,000 eggs. In a natural habitat where predators and prey work in balance, fast breeding's kept in check. But in a foreign ecosystem where natural predators are missing, it can lead to a disastrous population explosion. Another grisly rumor is the snakehead's reputed taste for blood. Odenkirk examines the precise anatomy that gives fishzilla its bite.
These are definitely impressive teeth. To me, it looks more like a saltwater fish in terms of its tooth structure. As you can see here, you've got several rows.
And while it may be extreme to compare it to a great white shark, its appetite is nearly insatiable.
When the snakehead eats, it's a thrust predator, and it'll just sort of envelop its prey at one time. They strike and just inhale it whole.
To complete this monstrous picture, some say the snakehead can do something few other fish can: walk on land. Or is this just horror film hype?
All of a sudden this thing springs legs, and Nikes, and is running in the marathon.
Another investigator of the snakehead scourge is Warden Todd Tognazzini of the California Department of Fish and Game. In order to test whether snakeheads can survive out of water and walk on land, Todd puts 2 northern snakeheads in an ice chest with no water for 9 hours. He doubts they'll survive. But when Tognazzini returns, he's startled by what he sees.
I opened the container that they were in. I filled the container with water to see if the fish would revive, and quickly the fish began to swim around.
The investigator then takes one of the fish out of the bucket and places it on his patio. The snakehead shows no fatigue from the ordeal. Instead, it immediately starts moving, wriggling away.
They have the ability to undulate somewhat like a snake, and that was clear in what I saw.
Maryland chef Jerry Trice also describes this fascinating snakehead behavior. Before the official ban on importing snakeheads, Trice kept them in his restaurant cooler. One afternoon, he noticed the lid was ajar.
We only left the cooler unattended for maybe 5 minutes, and obviously he made it from here to there, which is almost 8-9 yards. He was doing his walk. I would describe it more as like really fast, deft, kind of sidewinding thing. And ever since then, we kept a brick on top of the cooler.
There's anatomical science behind this wild wiggling. Out of the water, snakeheads rhythmically move their fins and muscular bodies back and forth. It's the fish equivalent of walking. And if snakeheads do in fact use this ability to cover distances above water, it's a resourceful adaptation. In their native Asia, snakeheads must survive wet and dry weather cycles like monsoons and droughts. Walking on land could mean the difference between life and death.
Having the ability to move across short distances of land from an area that's drying to one that's wet is a massive positive survival factor.
And to survive above water, Fishzilla has one final physical advantage. They can breathe air. On land, snakeheads use a primitive lung above their gills.
They have these air chambers just up underneath the skull, so they'll rise to the surface, gulp air. That air is forced up into those air chambers, which act in many respects like a lung.
But a walking fish? An invasive species with such locomotive powers could be disastrous, allowing them to migrate across diverse habitats with ease. These remarkable experiments give scientists and investigators new respect for this peculiar predator. And as the snakehead continues to breed its way through Virginia's Potomac River, each new discovery raises questions about where this Fishzilla may go next. And the U.S. snakehead scourge is about to get worse. In Florida, Dr. Walt Courtney studies photos of recent scattered snakehead catches, including snapshots from the Northeast. A close look reveals something frightening. Courtney identifies an entirely different snakehead species now on U.S. shores, the giant. And the giant snakehead's more than just enormous. It's the true Fishzilla, the species responsible for bloody attacks on fishermen in Asia.
They get larger than other species of snakeheads, for one thing, and they will attack anything else that passes by them.
Like the northern snakehead, the giant snakehead, China micropeltes, is native throughout Asia, but it's by far the most aggressive snakehead on Earth. Like their smaller cousins, giants have sharp teeth, breathe air, and breed fast. But giants can grow to more than 1.5 meters long.
This is the most dangerous of all the snakeheads. It's a vicious predator, particularly on other fishes.
And giants are born tough. The juveniles, called redlines, were once popular with aquarium enthusiasts before Congress banned importing snakeheads into the U.S. But as this footage reveals, redlines annihilate their tank mates. Dr. Courtney's determined to stop giants from adding to the snakehead epidemic. Post-congressional ban, he needs to know how these invasive fish are still making their way into the U.S. Are they coming directly from Asia, smuggled by human hands? Or is this a new strain of giant snakehead, a snakehead mutation, or new subspecies making its way across U.S. waters.
I'm convinced that there are more species of snakeheads than the 29 that have been reported in the scientific literature to date.
Courtney believes he'll find the answers on the fish's home turf. He turns his attention to Thailand, well-known giant snakehead stomping ground. He asked Thailand's famed snakehead fishing guide, Jean-Francois Elias, for help. He wants Jean-Francois to take a DNA sample and send it back to the U.S. for a species comparison. It's a vital opportunity to trace if and how snakeheads are traveling across entire oceans.
The reason that we asked Francois was to see whether or not the giant snakehead in Thailand is the same species as the giant snakehead here in the United States.
In Thailand, Jean-Francois agrees. Neither scientist nor angler knows what this mission will turn up.
He, of course, is out there living with these snakeheads all the time. Most biologists don't do this kind of thing. You can get a tremendous amount of very valuable information on the biology of a fish from an angling guide, especially one that's as observant as Francois is.
Kanchanaburi, Thailand. Early morning. The day of professional fishing guide Jean-Francois Elias's DNA expedition. The angler checks his gear. He's also bringing along accomplished fisherman Richard Pike to up the chances of successfully catching a giant snakehead.
Rick is a very good angler. He always comes with something exceptional, you know. He's always come up with a big catch.
The men divide and conquer to cover as much territory as possible. They set out for the nearby jungle reservoir. These fertile waters are an ideal habitat for the stealthy, slithering snakehead, offering a menu of fish and meat. Giant snakeheads sometimes feast on small birds, reptiles, and swimming rodents.
It's the top predator on the water. It's a savage fish. It's just a great fish to hunt.
Okay, now we are going to try a different lure.
Catching this cunning fish takes skill and intimate knowledge of their aggression.
It's visual. It's when a snakehead is striking, when he's attacking your lure, you see it. Bam! You just feel the heat. You feel it in your hand, you know.
To catch giants, locals look for a ball of fish fry they call look croc. Here's why. Adult snakeheads force their hatchlings to breathe air by pushing the babies to the surface. To a fisherman, the tiny breathing snakeheads look like a wriggling ball. From there, it's deceptively simple. Attack the baby ball, and the adults attack back.
Right, it's maternal instinct, you know. Nothing different than people. Any woman or any father in the world, okay, if you slap his kid, he will jump at you. The same for fish, you know.
Jean-Francois hits all the prime areas. He's hoping for a healthy specimen to examine and send data back to the U.S. He casts, pulls hard, and feels a quick bite. But the fish swims away. So far, the snakeheads are wary of his lure. Jean-Francois scans the waters, looking for signs of schooling fish.
You got to be a real challenger. You have to cast. If you're a quitter in life, forget about snakehead fishing. You need tam.
Suddenly, he spots a layer of red bubbles, indicating a ball of giant snakehead babies.
Red. Look, he's coming up. Look, this ball on top. You see it?
And where there are babies, there's a mother right behind.
We know the mom is there and she's big.
Jean-Francois makes a quick cast. An infuriated mother snakehead attacks the lure.
It's nothing but a challenge, you know. Oh, shot. The cat. She bite one time. She bites. You can see the foam on top.
And breaks free.
Sometimes it's crazy, you know, you have a big ball of fry, and the mother, she splits the fry. That's not a stupid animal, that's a very smart fish.
At last, a catch, a juvenile giant snakehead. But the mothers escaped.
Not a monster, but it's a nice fish. Good strike.
Jean-Francois wants to find a fully mature adult for measuring and photographing. The more information he can gather, the better. Then Jean-Francois gets a call. It's news of another catch. Back at the houseboat, Richard Pike has landed a Leviathan, a meter-long, record-breaking giant snakehead.
Feel great. Full of adrenaline. He's still flowing. Shaking.
What we got here is something like we can call a catch of a lifetime. This is a 9 kilo 2 female giant snakehead that my friend Rick caught on top water.
Jean-Francois quickly measures the fish and snaps photos. The day's giant snakehead catches give him the material he needs to send to America. He carefully records physical data and includes a snakehead tissue sample for DNA testing. Back in the US, Dr. Walt Courtney examines Jean-Francois' fin samples for DNA analysis. The process will take months. Until an American angler submits a giant snakehead catch for testing, Courtney can only theorize. His belief? The giant snakeheads in the US are identical to those in Thailand. The exact same fish, showing up on different shores. And Courtney's belief that they're the same species suggests a disturbing conclusion: human intervention. Scientists know invasive species almost always travel by human hands. Snakeheads can't travel across thousands of kilometers of ocean on their own.
There might be one person who says, I think it's my right to have this kind of animal. I'm going to have it. And it only takes one person to release it and cause a problem.
Despite a 2002 congressional ban on transporting snakeheads, Fishzilla continues to spread. Import-export documents show disturbing trends. Investigators suspect there may be a lucrative market selling snakeheads for food in the US. The species has long been a favored dish amongst people of Asian descent. In fact, in most of Asia, the snakehead's notoriety has less to do with danger than with delicacy. Bustling Prakhed Market in Thailand sells kilos of snakehead fish each day. Here, fishmongers kill and clean fish on the spot.
It's very popular. For these striped snakeheads, I probably sell 10 kilos per day.
Thailand's chefs boil snakeheads. They add lemon and spices to make the flavorsome tom yum soup. Some believe these soups even have medicinal healing properties. But are people of Asian descent eating snakeheads in the United States? If so, how are they getting them? For fish and game authorities, it's a daunting problem. To keep an invasive epidemic from getting worse, they've got to find the snakehead source. One mission becomes critical: stopping any additional snakeheads from making their way to the US. April 2003, just 6 months after Congress's official snakehead ban, investigator Todd Tognazzini of the California Department of Fish and Game gets an informant's tip. A Korean supermarket in Los Angeles has arranged to smuggle snakeheads into America aboard a passenger airline from Seoul, Korea to California.
We did covert tails of the product as it would come into the airlines.
Agents intercept the plane at LAX airport, but they're not ready to confiscate the goods. They want to track the delivery to the buyer, confirming exactly who's selling these illegal snakeheads in the US and why. agents mark the fish with small but unmistakable incisions for later verification. They follow the delivery truck to a large Korean supermarket in Los Angeles. Tognazini and his team stake out the market.
Stuff's still back there, but I think I'm ready to unload right now.
We were tailing shipments of snakehead to the market and ultimately watching it get unloaded at the market and also getting put out and offered for sale.
And what he uncovers is deeply troubling. Since 2002, the markets sold approximately $25,000 worth of illegal live snakeheads annually. It's the biggest snakehead bust in U.S. history.
I think anybody interested in importing snakehead into California would think twice, knowing the consequence that was held in this case.
The supermarket pays fines of over $200,000. And the bust confirms it. Snakeheads are being smuggled illegally from Asia into the U.S. But another question still remains. How are these alien predators getting into the wild? The most dangerous fishzilla front line remains here, Virginia. Under these rushing waters lurks a marauding menace. Snakeheads have invaded one of the largest river systems in America, the Potomac, and many worry they may be breeding and spreading fast.
We found age 0 fish, meaning it was spawned that year. And so there was no question, really. We've got natural reproduction.
Virginia biologists face a grim truth. Poisoning the water, or even isolating a single snakehead population in an open 600-kilometer river is virtually impossible. Their only hope now is to find some way to control fishzilla. Local scientist John Odenkirk and his team are determined to find out if the snakeheads are spreading, and if so, how to control them. But before they can control them, they've got to find them. To track snakeheads, biologists embed radio tags into live snakeheads. These radios can alert scientists where the fish are at any given time. From there, following their migration pattern and studying their behavior is much easier. The more tagged fish in the field, the more the researchers can track their movement, evaluate the ongoing threat, and strategize how to prevent further spread. October 2006. Working with Virginia Tech University, the team inserts transmitters in 50 northern snakeheads. The scientists expect to capture all the specimens they need in the course of 4 or 5 expeditions. But first, the team has to gather the snakeheads from the river. The best way to pull up fish by the boatload? Electrofishing.
We're going to try to capture some northern snakeheads with electrofishing. We're going to see a lot of fish rolling up. When they roll up fast, you got to be on them. You guys ready for that challenge? We're fishing.
Scientists cruise the waterway, carrying a powerful 5,000-watt electric generator. The generator connects to a metal probe, sending a current into the water. The current delivers a non-lethal shock to the fish's muscles, temporarily paralyzing them.
It's very effective in water up to about 6 feet deep. We send about a 6-foot radius of field out around that positive probe. It's not designed to get everything. It's designed to be sort of a snapshot gear.
The team triggers the current. On cue, paralyzed fish rise to the surface, floating downstream towards the boat. The stun lasts anywhere from a few seconds to a few minutes, depending on the fish's weight and size. But scientists know these local species are safe from permanent damage. It's their way to freeze Mother Nature.
It's a good sampling tool to use because it's non-lethal. We're able to go out, we can cover a lot of shallow water environments.
But so far, no snakeheads.
There's one.
Finally, the team spots their target. Moving quickly, they nab the alien predator and put it in a cooler. In addition to tagging, captured snakeheads get measured and cataloged, recording physical traits, estimated age and sex.
It looks like it may be a female. You see sort of a abdominal bulge here, indicating ovaries perhaps. Nick, is this the clove walls?
Yeah, it's all set.
The biologists prep their first snakehead sample for tagging. To get it ready, they put it in a tub of clove oil. Surprisingly, this common household spice contains a numbing chemical called eugenol. For humans, eugenol is a potent topical anesthetic. For fish, it's a sleeping pill.
After a few minutes, this fish will be sleepy enough where we'll be able to implant it with a transmitter. Because if we try to cut it now, it'll thrash somewhat.
Odenkirk tags the now sedated snakehead with an individual ID number.
It's got a phone number on it to call, and it's got a logo that says reward, $50, and then it's got an individual ID number. So if somebody catches this fish, we want to know, so they'll return the radio.
The fish is now ready for surgery.
I'm going to make the incision.
Biologist Nick Lapointe inserts a transmitter into its abdomen.
I'm making the incision along the stomach, just to the side of the midline. Try and avoid puncturing any of the important organs inside there.
Each transmitter emits a unique frequency, allowing researchers to track its migration for up to a year.
And so that radio tag simply sits in the fish at the tail end hanging out. And the last thing I'm going to do is put a few sutures in this fish to stitch it up and close the wound.
Are you all set?
The team releases the tag fish back into the Potomac. Now, they test the device by using an antenna to track the fish's movements.
When we track a fish, it beeps once every 1.5 seconds. If the fish has died or the tag hasn't moved in at least 8 hours, then it'll beep once every 3 seconds. So that delay in the beep lets us know if the fish is inactive or dead.
Guys right in here?
As the tagging data comes in, scientists keep careful records of snakehead behavior, tracking their location over a several-month period, looking for any migrations. Initial findings are encouraging. The local snakeheads seem to be confined to an enclosed area. Scientists call it the Snakehead Triangle and hope the fish will stay within these borders. But a breaking discovery shatters their hopes. June 2007, almost 9 months into the tagging program, a tagged snakehead shows up in a creek near the Pentagon, over 20 kilometers outside of the Snakehead Triangle. For John Odenkirk and his team, it's very bad news.
We've got the most significant range expansion we've had since we knew about the infestation.
And it can only mean one thing. This invasive species is still spreading. Around the country, concerned biologists like John Odenkirk continue to stay on high alert, conducting research, looking for more dangerous migrations, trying to brainstorm how to contain this aggressive fish. And in the end, the question remains, how did the two most dangerous snakehead species, the giant and the northern, invade the U.S.? Most experts now believe the giant snakehead entered American waters when alarmed pet owners became overwhelmed and released them into the wild.
They grow very quickly, and can outgrow someone's aquarium, and what do you do in a situation like that? People have released them.
And as for the dreaded northern snakehead, its story may reveal the most tragic and ironic truth of all. Sometimes those with the best intentions can wreak havoc.
The snakehead doesn't need legs to walk around. Humans will carry them. And we've demonstrated that time and again.
Incredibly, someone confessed. A Chinese-American man living in Maryland saw news reports of the northern snakehead scourge. He told Maryland Natural Resource authorities he believed he was responsible. In 2002, the man bought 2 live snakeheads from a New York market. He planned to make a medicinal soup for an ailing sister, but his sister recovered before he cooked them. To bring her more good fortune, the man released the fish into Crofton Pond. He was following an ancient custom known as ceremonial animal release, or prayer release. It's a tradition still practiced in Asia today. As the battle of man versus snakehead continues, biologists and fishermen refuse to sit back and wait. They monitor population growth, study DNA, and gather as much information as possible. hoping to find a clue to the best way to control this frankenfish. Only time will tell how dangerous this foreign predator is to the ecosystem. But one thing's clear, the snakehead has already earned the title of an unforgettable fishzilla.